What is up, everybody? Welcome to the next episode of Draft Season presented by Badlands and the fine folks at TOJ. I am one of your two co hosts, joined as always by my main man, Michael Meegans, the king of the Strong Island faithful. And we are joined this evening by a man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him anyway. I'm going to give him one anyway. The founder of TOJ, the founder of Badlands, the man with the good hair, Joe Caparoso, the boss. How you doing, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing well. The bat signal was hit today, so I had to crash draft season, and we had to turn draft season into a very special New York Jets circus edition. Because of course, the second after me and Connor finished recording last night, we get a massive drop in the Athletic, the hit piece, the leak season we've been waiting for on Robert Saleh and the coaching staff. Rex Hogan, a frequent topic on the Badlands feed, is let go. Apparently, he's been let go for multiple weeks.
Right.
There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to rant about. Fellas, you tell me what was your guys' initial reaction to all this, and then I'll get my preliminary rant off my chest.
Yeah. It's a really good question, and I'm actually really glad that Meeks and I get to do this episode after Hollywood Rex Hogan got let go, and apparently after he's been gone for like a month or however long he's been gone. Meeks, I'll start with you, man, because this is what you've been waiting for Hogan to be let go, but I'm sure you didn't think it was going to come on the heels of the birthday hit piece for Bobby Saleh.
I mean, Rex Hogan being gone, like the vibes are immediately better. Like I'm pretty sure I think I tweeted or said in the Slack, like the Jets, if they let Hackett go and they let Hogan go, like I'll actually believe things are different because it just seems to be such a central problem that like follows those guys. I mean, in regards to the hit piece, like it was more just like when I read it this morning, it was more funny than anything. Just like we knew a lot of the stuff. We knew like how bad the Hackett stuff got and just how like ingrained like with social media this franchise has just become and like how they read their press clippings and how they really care about how they're perceived, which is always funny because the media normally tends to make the Jets the butt of the joke. So I'm still laughing about Robert Saleh complaining like privately that how the Giants, like the Wink Martindale like Dayball like feud was covered in a much different way than this hit piece is being like shown now, which is just shows like if you didn't know that coming in, man, like this is how Jets Twitter fans feels. You're getting paid like $5 million.
He sounds like us.
Like, I'll gladly take your paycheck and deal with that media like discrepancy, man. I'll gladly do it.
Yeah, we'll go into the article more in depth, but I will say for me, Bob Saleh going full Nino Brown and trying to take people's cell phones, that kind of threw me. Like I was like, "Whoa, buddy!" Like that's a little. So I think as we and we'll talk about it more obviously, but for me, it was just how sensitive this regime really is to just any form of criticism. And whether that's on Twitter, our boy Maddie had a joke about like, oh, I really doubt 80-year-old Woody Johnson is on Twitter. But I don't think there's a football team right now that doesn't follow what the conversation is on social media through one way or the other. I just can't remember a team in recent memory, other than the Commanders, and obviously because I live down here, who just is absolutely so sensitive about how they're covered on social media. So that was like my biggest takeaway was like, all right, Bob, like you got to chill with that. But Joe, what about you? Let's throw it to you. What did you think?
I mean, look, we've known for a long time that the Jets are hypersensitive to this stuff. They read everything. They listen to everything. They are very dialed into the discussion around their team, which, look, I think most teams are, but they seem to care to a different degree. I think what jumped out to me in the article, because this just confirmed a lot of priors, like if you watch the Jets this year, they looked like a team that had all of this going on with their coaching staff, particularly their offensive coaching staff. So Hackett not really like working hard and game planning properly and not adjusting on the sideline. Like, yeah, we watched the offense. We knew that. And we could have predicted that. I think scary that they're confirming the ability to play younger players with Woody Johnson. I think Saleh, like going to Pro Football Reference and looking at like his record compared to other people's records, like that's ugly. And I don't think it's like they said they talked to like 30 people and you could be like, wow, how'd they get that many people? And you kind of think about it like, well, they recently let go of a running back coach, a receiver coach, a key person in the front office, although I don't think that was directly tied to this because we've been talking about Hogan for a while. That's actually a net positive that they got rid of someone that senior. Wish they would do more of it, candidly. There's a lot of players who were like on the team for a short period of time who I'm sure were more than happy to give details.
Dalvin was probably
Dalvin Cook.
Yes. I don't know anything for sure, but where did my head go? Dalvin Cook, Tim Boyle, Adrian Amos, maybe some
Michael
guys
Carter.
who were last year,
I'm
like
sure
Rankins,
sure
Michael
Zach
Carter,
would love to do it.
Zach Wilson. And look, we've been talking about this for a while, like the GM and the front office and the coaching staff getting ready to slowly tangle because both sides have objectively been bad by their records so far. They're both on a scorching hot seat. This article is effectively like 95%, 98% blaming the coaching staff. When do we get sort of the volley back on the front office? And look, the front office now has made the biggest change so far. Hogan was effectively the number 2 to Joe Douglas. You know, he was an inner circle guy. He needed to be replaced. There was no reason for him to still be here. I don't know why he spanned 2 different eras and regimes. That was always confusing to me. Why he was brought back. You know, the Jets have, coaching staff wise, really not changed anything. And if that article implies that they want to bring another voice in above Hackett, it's like totally insane at that point because they already have issues getting plays in because you have Hackett, Downing, Rodgers, Calabrese, Carter, all weighing in. It's way too many cooks in the kitchen. And now if you're not going to fire Hackett, you're going to bring, who else is going to take that job if they're not the real offensive coordinator? It reminds me a lot of the 2014 Jets when things got ugly with Rex and Idzik and like Morningway, and there was all types of leaks like this. You would just think this would have came in December, not at this stage of January. And I don't want to mega hyperbole, but I've said that there's a 0% chance the Jets are going to get rid of Saleh or get rid of Douglas. I think after everything that happened today, I'd say it's like 10%. I still don't think it's going to happen. I want to be clear. But I'm surprised they got rid of Hogan. I'm not surprised about this minor coaching staff stuff. That's whatever. But sometimes these things, they spiral and they get really bad really fast. And for an organization who's so sensitive about their press clippings, I do wonder with how this carousel hasn't spun out with Vrabel, with Carroll, with other guys who are still out there, more of the assistant coaches. It doesn't feel like 0%. It feels more like 5 to 10% that if this gets worse, and I haven't seen any play, you said this before we got on air, Meegs, I haven't seen anybody on social media on the Jets saying anything to defend Robert Saleh. And the Jets players are pretty mouthy on social media. That's not a knock. We're all mouthy on social media.
Mind you, to that point, I was gonna say to that point, DJ Reed defended Rex Hogan. He was like, "Rex is my guy." Like he just tweeted that like an hour ago, but nobody has come forward and been like, "Oh no, that's crazy talk about Bob. That's crazy talk."
I don't know, man. I mean, let's see how these next few days play out. Let's see if it's addressed. Let's see if there's a counter story, and let's see if there's some chatter about the front office. I mean, my guess is Douglas is better plugged in from a media perspective. He's also liked generally better than Saleh, fair or unfair, even though I think they should sink or swim together. I don't necessarily know, and we've said for a while that it probably wouldn't play out that way. But let's see how these next few weeks go, because this is ugly. This is like 2014 ugly, and it hasn't been that bad in a while. Even the end of the Bowles-McCagnon stuff wasn't like this because that was kind of out of nowhere when McCagnon got knocked off. Is there a world where the Jets fire Robert Saleh? Like, what do you guys think? Is that crazy talk? I feel like it's crazy talk, but maybe not.
Meegs, I'll go to you first because I mean, I'll tell you flat out, I don't think it's crazy talk, and I'll tell you why. But what do you think, Meegs?
Like, I don't think it's crazy because, like, I don't think you could hand, like, this head coaching job to, like, a first-time head coach. Like, you're too late in the cycle, like, getting the right assistants to go with a guy who isn't, like, proven or experienced, doesn't have as many connections because he has probably been in, like, the league or in higher positions longer. But, like, there are established head coaches who are out there who I think would jump at the chance to coach the Jets. And they basically, this entire the circus, as we call it, kind of needs an adult in the room. And that's, like, Pete Carroll was the Jets coach in 1994. I wasn't even alive then. Like Mike Vrabel was like one of, like, is talked about as one of, like, the best leaders, one of the big, like, your typical CEO head coach, like a no nonsense guy who, like, wouldn't stand for any of the things that basically have happened over, like, the past 2 seasons. And those guys are out there, and, like, no one's really gonna hire them. Like, Washington hasn't even interviewed either of them. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's crazy because the break glass in case of emergency exists. Like it's not like we have to like pick a coach from like who hasn't coached in 3 years or who like is on a team right now that you're waiting to interview. Like they're
Yeah.
right there. They're hireable.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say Mike Vrabel's staff is already here. So I
Yeah.
mean,
He's
like
got them all.
these guys are here. So like,
Yeah.
if you wanted to hire somebody, there it is, right? I think and again, man, like I know this is a funny thing to hang your hat on, but the fact that like Woody just tweeted a giveaway for a helmet, but didn't wish Bob a happy birthday, like that's kind of crazy to me. Like
Yeah.
that like, and we're talking about like the you mentioned 2014, Joe. The optics of this circus look bad. Like you don't wish Bob a happy birthday, but you announce that Jermaine Johnson's going to the Pro Bowl. Like that's kind of weird. The point that
Yeah.
you made about how nobody, not Sauce Gardner, not Brees Hall. Brees Hall was busy out here talking about, oh, the way that these running backs are used is a dream. But now he can't be bothered to find his phone to fire off a tweet to shout out his head coach. There's a lot, and I will tell you, so I'm out on Robert Saleh as a head coach. I don't think that he can be the guy here. I think that last year you kind of saw like the allowing Mike White in the offensive line to wear anti-Zach Wilson shirts. I think that's weird. No matter how you feel about Zach, that's a weird thing for a coach to allow, right? That means you're starting to lose control of your locker room. And Connor tweeted this, and I thought it was I thought it was on point. Jeff Ulbrich is down at the Senior Bowl, right? So Zach Blatt and Diane Rossini wanted to talk to somebody. They could go talk to Ulbrich right down in Mobile. And so I think we've reached the point with Robert Saleh, like again looking up the records, lamenting that he's not covered the same way. Like it's things that like you're seeing the team has thin skin. Bob also, they are your team. They are your guys. Joe, I want to go piece by piece through the article, and I'll start with the easiest thing that I think we talked about this too when they traded for Aaron Rodgers. So this is kind of a softball. But the first thing that they start out is that Rodgers isn't the assistant GM. Joe Douglas is his assistant GM. That
Yep.
perception around the league that Joe Douglas isn't even the guy calling the shots right now. Because that's the one jab Douglas got in this article. That was the one jab he got. What do you think of the perception? Because I think you're right. People perceive Douglas to be much better at his job than Bob is, when realistically they're both, 40 games under 500, 35 games under 500. So speak a little bit about Joe Douglas and just why he continues to get a pass, aside from that one piece, that one mention about, Aaron Rodgers being the GM.
I think we see this a lot with a head coach and a GM split. It reminds me a lot of Bowles and Maccagnan, where everyone was much quicker to blame Bowles and say that Bowles will never get another job, but Maccagnan will. And that Maccagnan deserves to hire a second head coach. So Maccagnan and Brian Heimerdinger got to go interview, and of course they pick Adam Gase, and then a few months later, Maccagnan gets fired anyway. I just think it's the nature of the job. Like the head coach is the public face of the team. He's in the commercial. He's doing the press conferences. He's giving the awkward quotes on the radio every week that don't always land right. It's a harder, more public job. We see Joe Douglas for like 11 minutes a year, unless he's like drunk on stage yelling about getting Aaron Rodgers. So he gets to stay out of the spotlight. And look, he has 2022, right? He was part of a draft class that he can always point back towards, even though his win-loss record is disgusting and the rest of his resume is pretty bad. And I've kind of generally said, like, I think Douglas has been about like a C plus and he's been treated like an A, and Saleh's been like a C minus and he's treated like an F. They're closer, but Douglas has probably been slightly better, which helps him. And he gets to hide a little more behind the scenes. The problem now is, whether it's true or not, if the league-wide perception is that Aaron Rodgers is really fully running the show, that makes the Jets that much more of a bit of a joke and like harder and harder to deal with. And it gives certain agents and situations more leverage. Like the Jets were going to pay Alan Lazard more money than anyone else to make Rodgers happy. The Jets were probably going to pay Dalvin Cook, Billy Turner, Randall Cobb, all guys we know that Boyle, all guys that we know Rodgers had to have input in and put his name on. Like Boyle will never start a game the rest of his NFL career. He should have never started a game the rest of the way. It only happened and he was only the number 2 because of his relationship with Rodgers. And Billy Turner was only their swing backup because of his history with Rodgers. And look, some of that is like what you sign up for when you're as desperate as the Jets are, when you miss on Zach Wilson and you haven't had a quarterback in forever. But it's dangerous when you're counting on this guy, not just to play quarterback, but also to be the offensive coordinator and also to be the general manager. Even a guy like, if you look at basketball, even a guy like LeBron, who is the second best player ever, he has plenty of misses when he tries to play GM. And sometimes he could like fix it and make it work. But for Rodgers, like, this isn't 33-year-old Rodgers. Like, he hasn't been an MVP now in a couple seasons. He was kind of hurt and banged up 2 years ago. He obviously missed all of last year. It's dangerous, but they don't really have a choice at this point in some ways. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the front office tries to handle this offseason, because Douglas, his first concern is probably job security. So if you see things like, we're going to trade down and maybe take some more developmental guys and maybe not be quite as crazy at all, how do they balance that? Because he needs to probably try to sell that. Not only am I building something that could win next year and the year after, I'm building something for after Aaron is here. And I don't know if he has the rope to pull that off in the building. It really feels like it's Woody and Aaron Rodgers show. And I don't see, at least on offense, it's hard to see the Jets adding anybody unless Rodgers is like fully on board with it. And it's a hard situation to operate in, because they got a lot to dig out of from just how bad Lazard, Cook, Cobb, Billy Turner were.
Yeah. And you're talking about a team that needs potentially 2 tackles if they decide to keep AVT at guard, or a guard and a tackle if they decide to put AVT at tackle, and then another tight end, another receiver. You need some depth at running back, right? You need an actual backup quarterback, and actually perfect segue Meegs to your favorite topic, Zach Wilson, because another thing that came up in the article was that his relationship with Rodgers was apparently frayed, and he thought he was going to have a direct line to Aaron, and so I want to get your take on that, because that, I think, out of everything that I read in that article, that was the part that made me laugh the most, because it was like, okay, like, this is kind of delusional. Like, okay, so you thought you and Rodgers were going to be like True Detective out here saving this franchise. What did you think of the Zach Wilson of it all, and just his disdain for Rodgers as the season went on, and the change in their relationship?
I mean, I'm not really surprised. Like, once Rodgers got hurt, like, he kind of just wasn't going to be in the building. And I think one of the biggest indictments on Saleh was like how much they were leaking, like how excited they were to have Rodgers in the building, like how Rodgers' presence changes so much for them, which is really kind of an indictment on the guy who's supposed to be like in charge of the team in regards to the head coach. And like in regards to Zach, like it just feels like Zach has at once or another always wanted to find someone else to blame for why it hasn't gone like his way in the NFL. Like last year it was LaFleur. Like LaFleur didn't like develop him. Like you saw like everyone with eyes saw how much better every other quarterback besides Zach Wilson was in LaFleur's offense. But like he didn't develop him the right way. He didn't coddle him the right way. LaFleur had to go, and Zach was able to say as like the QB2 to be like developed behind Rodgers is like this like hard reset. And because that didn't happen and he had to play, and like I guess Rodgers wasn't as, when he was actually playing, as helpful as he led on to be. Now he's like upset about it. It really just kind of is par for the course with Zach Wilson, is that it's a lot of the things that are around me are the problem, not me, which didn't surprise me at all, because that's kind of how he's been his entire career.
Yeah, and I think you're running into with him, it's part of the reason why I think Sam Darnold has been able to continue to find work, right? Like Sam's on his now third team, right? Is because of the way, Joe, you mentioned this. Bowles and Sam didn't go out in they didn't burn the building down, and now look at Bowles, right? Back-to-back division titles, got a career year out of Baker Mayfield, his
offensive coordinator is a head coach. Like
his offensive coordinator is a head coach,
Yeah.
and whereas I'm pretty sure there's nobody on Robert Saleh's team, on his staff, that you're like, yeah, there's a future head coach coming down the pike. Joe, I want to get your thoughts on because Meegs alluded to just, again, like Zach Wilson kind of, burning it all down as it goes. And then now they're trying to, based on this article, they're trying to take some power away from Hackett, right? But you alluded to this, so many cooks in the kitchen. Who else are you adding to kind of, modernize this offense? So they're trying to, wrestle some control away from him, while Bob was here pining for a public show of support from Woody and Aaron, which we all said in December was a little misguided, right? This team, again, like they hadn't really shown anything, and it seemed like they were just holding on to hope that if we could just get Aaron back, everything will be fine. And that seemed to grate some of the players the wrong way. What did you think when you read that Bob's constant fawning over Aaron started to rub the defense the wrong way. The only good thing that, had been, the only positive that had been in this team for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's always had an issue where